Hey guys, welcome back. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating. 97% of women say there's one subtle quality that instantly makes older men seem more loyal. And trust me, most people completely miss it because it doesn't look like what you'd expect. Now, you might be thinking, is it about money? Is it about status? Nope. It's way simpler and way more powerful. This is the kind of quality that you probably don't even consciously notice at first, but it sends a very clear signal about commitment and reliability. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what women are spotting in older men that makes them feel safe, appreciated, and genuinely valued. And if you're curious about spotting loyalty in your own relationships or even attracting the right kind of partner, stick around because this one trait might change the way you look at older men forever. All right, let's get into it. So, why is this topic so important? Well, let's face it, loyalty is one of the hardest things to measure in relationships, especially in dating. When it comes to older men, there's a lot of stereotypes floating around, that they're set in their ways, that they're emotionally distant, or that they're just experienced and may have baggage. All of that makes it easy for people to misread signs. The reality is, loyalty isn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It's about small, consistent behaviors that show someone truly cares. But here's the tricky part. Those behaviors are often so subtle that most people overlook them entirely. A kind word remembered, a small act of consideration, or even a slight adjustment in behavior for your comfort. These are the real signals of someone who is dependable. Women, especially, tend to pick up on these subtle cues, even if they can't always articulate why they feel someone is loyal. For example, maybe he checks in without being asked, remembers little details about your day, or makes consistent efforts to show up emotionally and physically. To the untrained eye, these actions might seem normal or even insignificant, but to someone looking for reliability, they speak volumes. And here's another layer. Older men often have experience navigating relationships, so they tend to express loyalty in ways that are calm, understated, and thoughtful. This can confuse people who are expecting flashy or dramatic demonstrations of commitment. That's why so many relationships fail to recognize loyalty until it's too late. If you've ever felt unsure about whether someone is genuinely dependable, you're not alone. Many people struggle with this because the signals are so quiet and often misinterpreted. But once you know what to look for, it becomes much easier to read the signs clearly, and that's exactly what we're breaking down today. Before we jump into the list, I do want to make something clear. Not every older man behaves the same way. Everyone has different personalities, experiences, and ways of showing care. These insights are patterns we see most commonly, they're not hard rules. So if you notice a behavior that's slightly different, that doesn't automatically mean anything negative. Think of this as a guide to understanding tendencies, rather than a checklist. Some men might express loyalty more verbally, others through action, and some might combine both. The key is consistency. Loyal men tend to repeat these small behaviors over time, rather than just doing them once or sporadically. Also, context matters. Someone's environment, their past experiences, and even the dynamics of the relationship itself can affect how they express loyalty. So these signs are best understood as part of the bigger picture. When you see multiple behaviors together, that's when the signal is strongest. With that in mind, let's get into the 5 powerful signs that women notice in older men which make them feel instantly that they can be trusted and relied upon. These are subtle, often overlooked qualities, but once you start paying attention, they'll become impossible to miss. From small gestures that show attention to detail to consistent patterns of presence and communication, these behaviors reveal more than words ever could. And remember, loyalty isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, caring consistently, and putting effort into the relationship in ways that truly matter. So, let's start with the first sign, and it's one that might surprise you because it's not dramatic, flashy, or even particularly noticeable at first glance. Alright, let's kick things off with a behavior that's subtle but incredibly telling. Older men who seem loyal tend to notice the little things, and I mean really notice them. We're not talking about remembering your birthday or anniversary, though that's nice too. We're talking about the small, everyday details that often go completely unnoticed by others. For example, maybe he remembers how you take your coffee. Maybe he notices which side of the bed you like to sleep on, or remembers a tiny story you shared months ago. He might even notice changes in your mood or energy and respond without you saying a word. To most people, these are just normal observations, but to someone who's attuned to loyalty, this is a huge deal. Why does this matter psychologically? Well, paying attention to details signals genuine investment. Loyalty isn't about grand statements. It's about showing up consistently, noticing what matters, and taking actions that reinforce care and reliability. When someone remembers small things about you, it demonstrates that they value you specifically, not just the idea of being in a relationship. Here's a mini scenario. Imagine you're talking about a favorite book you loved as a teenager, something nostalgic that shaped a part of who you are. A loyal older man might bring it up weeks later, or even surprise you by referencing it in conversation. That action tells you he's listening, that he's internalized your stories, and that he wants to connect on a deeper level, not superficially. Another example is in day-to-day life. Maybe he notices that you prefer a certain type of snack or that a particular kind of music lifts your mood. Later, he buys that snack or plays that song just to make you smile. This isn't about trying to impress you. It's about showing that he cares in tangible, thoughtful ways. And over time, these small gestures build an undeniable sense of trust. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but isn't that just being polite? That's a fair question. The difference here is consistency and subtlety. A loyal older man doesn't just do these things once or when it's convenient. He does them repeatedly, without expectation of praise, because his focus is genuinely on you and your well-being. So, what should you do if you notice this behavior? Take note of it, mentally or even emotionally. It's one of those things that doesn't get recorded on social media or talked about in a group, but it's a silent indicator of loyalty that most people completely overlook. And when multiple small details are consistently noticed and remembered, that's a very strong signal that he's dependable, committed, and genuinely invested in your happiness. To sum it up, loyalty in older men often starts with attention to detail. It's quiet, subtle, and sometimes invisible to the casual observer. But for women who are tuned in, these small signals are like neon lights flashing. You can trust this person. They see you. They value you. And they're willing to show it through consistent care. This is the first piece of the puzzle, and it sets the stage for the next behaviors we'll explore. Because once you notice attention to detail, you start spotting other loyalty signals everywhere. The second sign that makes older men seem loyal is something almost everyone can notice if they pay attention. They show up consistently and not just when it's convenient. This isn't about grand romantic gestures or extravagant trips. It's the little, tangible ways they make themselves present in your life. For example, maybe he's the one who always arrives on time, whether it's a casual coffee date or a more meaningful event. Or he's the guy who checks in during your busy week, just to see how your day went, without any expectation of a reward. Imagine this scenario. You're having a rough week. Work was stressful, and you're exhausted. A loyal older man might notice your mood shift, send a quick message like, "Hey, just thinking about you. Hope today isn't too rough," or even show up in person if he knows it will help. It's subtle, and yet, these small acts of consistency communicate a powerful message. I'm here for you no matter what. Why does this behavior matter psychologically? Consistency is one of the strongest indicators of reliability and loyalty. When someone repeatedly shows up, it signals that their commitment is genuine, not just surface level or situational. Over time, these consistent actions build trust and make the other person feel secure. Women are particularly sensitive to this because emotional reliability matters more than words or promises. Another way this shows up is in planning and follow-through. Older men who are loyal tend to follow through on their commitments, whether it's remembering a small favor you asked for last week or being present during important moments in your life. You start to notice a pattern. They do what they say they'll do. And in relationships, actions almost always speak louder than words. Here's a little anecdote to make it more relatable. Imagine two guys are dating the same woman. One is always enthusiastic in conversation but flakes on plans or forgets important details. The other, an older man who seems loyal, may not be as flashy or expressive, but he's always there when it counts. Which one do you think she will trust more? Exactly, the guy who consistently shows up, even in small ways. It's important to note that showing up doesn't always mean being physically present. Emotional presence is just as significant. A loyal older man will listen actively, remember what you said in previous conversations, and provide support without being prompted. He invests his energy thoughtfully, and that pattern over time becomes unmistakable. So, what should you do if you notice this behavior? Recognize it for what it is, a true indicator of loyalty. Appreciate the subtle signals, because they reveal more than any big gestures ever could. Over time, these consistent patterns create a foundation of trust and security, the kind that 97% of women instinctively notice and value. To summarize, showing up consistently, both physically and emotionally, is a cornerstone of loyalty. It's visible, it's reliable, and it's one of the key qualities that makes older men stand out as trustworthy partners. Once you start spotting it, you'll realize how rare and meaningful it really is. The third sign that makes older men appear loyal is often overlooked because it's wrapped in humor, and yet it's incredibly telling. Loyal older men tend to use thoughtful humor as a way to connect, comfort, and show care without being overbearing. Think about it. We've all met someone who cracks a joke at just the right moment, makes us laugh, or knows how to lighten the mood when we're stressed. With older men who are loyal, this isn't random or superficial. Their humor is tailored. It reflects attention, empathy, and understanding. They know when you need a laugh, when to tease gently, and when to keep things light. It's subtle, but it's consistent. Here's a relatable example. Imagine you've had a rough day at work and are venting about something frustrating. A loyal older man might drop a playful, inside joke that only you two understand. That little laugh doesn't erase your stress, but it shows he's paying attention, emotionally attuned, and wants to support you in a way that feels natural, not forced. Why does this indicate loyalty? Psychologically, humor is a bonding tool. It creates positive shared experiences and helps regulate emotions. When someone consistently uses humor thoughtfully, especially during challenging moments, it demonstrates that they care about your emotional well-being and are invested in your happiness. It's a way of saying, I'm here for you, and I want you to feel good, even when things are tough. Another sign to notice is that this humor is never used to manipulate or belittle. Loyal men don't make jokes at your expense in a mean-spirited way. Instead, their humor lifts the mood and strengthens your connection. Over time, this creates a sense of safety, trust, and emotional reliability. And let's be honest, humor is just downright attractive. Women instinctively notice when a man can make them laugh in a caring, thoughtful way, and when it's paired with subtle, consistent acts of consideration, it signals something bigger: loyalty. So, what should you do if you notice this behavior? Appreciate it. Recognize that someone who invests time and thought into connecting with you emotionally, even through playful humor, is likely showing a deeper commitment than they might explicitly say. And as patterns build, it becomes clear that their loyalty isn't just in words or promises, but in the way they consistently make you feel supported and understood. In short, thoughtful humor is more than just fun. It's a hidden signal of reliability, care, and emotional investment. When paired with attention to detail and consistent presence, it's one of the reasons older men can appear surprisingly loyal, even if they're not shouting it from the rooftops. The fourth sign that makes older men seem loyal is all about intentional effort, showing up consistently, not just by accident, but because they choose to be there. This goes beyond simple reliability. It's about conscious investment in the relationship and in your well-being. For example, maybe he notices you've been stressed or overwhelmed and rearranges his schedule just to be with you. Or he makes sure to attend events that matter to you, even if they aren't his first choice. These actions aren't loud or flashy. In fact, they often go unnoticed by casual observers. But to someone paying attention, they're incredibly meaningful. Here's a real-life scenario. Imagine you're hosting a small gathering, and he volunteers to help quietly behind the scenes, making sure everything goes smoothly. Or perhaps he remembers that you mentioned wanting to try a new hobby and encourages you, showing up occasionally to participate with you. It's not about earning points or praise. It's about intentional presence. Psychologically, this behavior signals a high level of commitment. Loyalty isn't just about being around when it's easy. It's about showing effort consistently, even when no one is watching. When someone goes out of their way to prioritize your needs and presence, it demonstrates a deep-seated sense of responsibility and care. Women pick up on this naturally because effort is tangible, repeatable, and emotionally reassuring. Another example is emotional availability. A loyal older man doesn't disappear when challenges arise. He maintains a steady presence, even in difficult conversations or emotionally charged situations. He's not avoiding discomfort. He's showing that he values the relationship enough to face issues head-on, thoughtfully and patiently. It's also worth noting that intentional effort doesn't require grandiose gestures. Small actions, repeated over time, are far more telling. It's making sure you feel seen, heard, and supported in everyday moments. It's remembering details, checking in, listening actively, and making choices that prioritize your connection. These subtle, consistent behaviors build a foundation of trust and loyalty that is unmistakable. So, if you notice this kind of behavior, pay attention. It's a strong indicator that the person genuinely cares. They aren't just being nice or trying to impress you. They're demonstrating a level of loyalty that is rare and meaningful. Over time, these repeated, intentional acts make a relationship feel stable, secure, and deeply supported. To sum it up, intentional effort and consistent presence are cornerstones of loyalty. They reveal someone who is not only committed in theory, but actively chooses to invest in the relationship. This quiet but powerful behavior is one of the reasons older men are often perceived as more loyal. They understand that trust and reliability are built over time, through repeated, thoughtful actions rather than words alone. The fifth and final sign is all about the digital world, something that's impossible to ignore in today's dating scene: thoughtful communication online. Loyal older men don't just text when convenient or leave messages unread. Instead, they make small, meaningful gestures that show care and consistency, even from a distance. For example, maybe he sends a quick message to check in during a busy day, comments on something you posted with genuine interest, or remembers to follow up on a conversation from days ago. These aren't generic or automated messages. They're intentional, and they signal that you're on his mind. Why does this matter? Because consistency in communication, even digitally, shows emotional investment. In a world where ghosting, flakiness, and superficial texting are common, someone who takes the time to engage thoughtfully demonstrates loyalty and reliability. So, next time you notice an older man consistently showing small digital signs of attention, a text, a shared article, or a thoughtful reply, recognize it as more than courtesy. It's a modern-day indicator of care, trustworthiness, and genuine investment in the relationship. In short, even in our tech-driven world, loyal behavior shines through. It just adapts to the platform we use most. And that wraps up the 5 key signs that make older men appear loyal in ways most people completely miss. From consistent attention to small details, showing up in real life, using thoughtful humor, putting in intentional effort, to even subtle digital communication, these behaviors aren't flashy, but they speak volumes about reliability and care. If you've noticed any of these signs in someone you know, it's rarely a coincidence. Loyalty is built quietly, over time, through repeated, meaningful actions, not just words or grand gestures. Recognizing these patterns can help you understand relationships on a deeper level and maybe even attract the kind of partner who truly values consistency, thoughtfulness, and trust. I'd love to hear from you. Which of these signs have you noticed in your own life? Drop a comment below and share your experiences. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future insights about dating, psychology, and human behavior. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week with more tips and observations you won't want to miss.